Community safety is a complicated issue in Central Brooklyn. There are competing interests on a number of issues, including but not limited to gun violence and conflict resolution, moving funding from the NYPD into social services, and the city's mental health emergency response. What role will your office take in navigating competing community safety interests? And ultimately, how will you act to keep constituents safe?
So that is really somewhat like the $1,000,000 question. We have been living with violence, particularly, in Black and Brown communities for years. I'm old enough to remember, grew up during the crack era and how our community was devastated by crack and by the violence from that. So for me, this is very personal, of losing a lot of friends, to drugs, to violence. So first things first is we need to make sure that we are not asking police officers to do jobs that they're not qualified to do. For example, if there's an EDP, emotionally disturbed person, who's not violent, not causing any harm or is not causing any harm to themselves or others, the first call then should not be to the NYPD. But far too often, particularly when it's a person of color who seems a little emotionally disturbed, the first call is to the NYPD. Okay. We need to make sure that we are investing funding monies, because we're saying defund the police. It's really about reallocation of funding from the police department to agencies that can take on responsibilities that we know the police department should not be involved with. We know that this did not happen last fiscal year, the budget year, did not happen. That they played around with how the money was supposedly defunded, but it really wasn't. So, and then when we move those monies to the particular agencies, we need to make sure those agencies have the resources to take on those responsibilities that we are taking away from the NYPD. Number one job of any government is the safety of its citizens. Mm-hmm. The number one job of a council member is the safety, of your citizens. And it pains me when, our seniors can't sit outside because they fear, being shot. Our little kids can't play in the street or go to the park because they fear being shot. The 1-year-old being killed last year in the park just brought back, painful memories of the late 80s and early 90s for me. So safety is the most important responsibility, but we have to be smart when we're talking about safety. We have to use all entities available to us when we're talking about keeping our community safe. And I'm going to keep emphasizing if we're going to take the NYPD from certain responsibilities, we have to make sure we give resources to those agencies that are supposed to pick up those responsibilities that we took away from the NYPD.